If you're not listening to the Smoke World podcast, you're wasting your time, you mortal.
What's up, folks? Welcome to another episode of Smoke World. I'm your host, Stone. So go grab that stick, go grab a glass or whatever you're drinking. Let's sit back and have a conversation. You can follow me on Instagram at Smoke World Podcast. Email stone at smokeworldpodcast.com and the website smokeworldpodcast.com. Today I have the pleasure of having Paul Allen, the author of the book When Tobacco Was King. Mr. Paul Allen, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How you doing? Glad to have me. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. Now, interestingly enough, you sent the book to me, folks. You can talk about the United States Post Office, and I have not received it yet. So I do apologize because I wanted to peruse the book to have a little, a general idea of what was taking place, but Can you can fill us in on the book? Okay, when did you write this book, and what is this book all about?
Yeah, make sure you tell me to take a breath because I'm used to making offer talks and presentations. So if I ramble on, you just stop at any minute.
That's beautiful.
I wrote the book a couple of years ago. It took me close to a year and a half. And my dad basically came from North Carolina. He was a young man, and he won a coin to come to Canada to cut burley tobacco. And eventually they proved that they could grow filtered tobacco up in Canada. So he came up and grew some of the first crops, not the first, but some of the first crops in southwestern Ontario, and eventually worked his way up and got hired by a Canadian leaf tobacco company. That company was started by the Universal Leaf Richmond, and Universal Leaf is still the largest purchaser and processor of tobacco. So that's I just thought it was a good story, and I was in Montreal once in a museum, and the plaque in the museum as I entered said portions and financial contribution for this museum was made by the McDonald Stewart Foundation. And I thought, geez, I know that. McDonald Stewart, that's the McDonald Tobacco in Montreal. So I found the McDonald Stewart Foundation, and I basically introduced myself, and we started about tobacco and McDonald and my dad's company. And the guy said, you should write a book. So that's what started it. And I just thought, hey, it's a great history. It's a great story about tobacco, and some things should be told about the industry and the things that they've done.
Okay, with all that being said, have you discovered anything that the common person would not maybe know in reference to tobacco? Some of the behind-the-scenes things with tobacco.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Stone. I found out a lot myself. I knew that there was a lot of philanthropy that was associated with the tobacco companies, and of course, because of the health scare and the changing of advertising protocols, a lot of the things that the various tobacco companies did, they don't sponsor anymore. In Canada, we're big in curling. Well, the McDonald Tobacco Company sponsored the Briar Curling Championship of Canada, and Briar was the name of the cigarette that they produced. I also found that the McDonald Stewart Foundation has donated millions of to hospitals and research and giving them funds to buy modern equipment. And of course, in the United States, the Buck Duke and Doris Duke, his only daughter, the Duke Foundation is huge. Everybody's university, but that money went into Wake University. It went into various research. It funded some ministers. and it's still one of the largest privately uh, operated foundations in the United States. So yeah, various things over the years with the philanthropy. In Canada, McGill University was started by McDonald tobacco money. Out in province of Prince Edward Island, David Stewart, who inherited the company and eventually sold it to R.J. Reynolds, he set up the first veterinary school in the Maritimes for Canada. So lots of good things came from the tobacco money.
Okay, interesting. Now, do Canada have the same regulations on tobacco as the United States? Here in the United States, a lot of the tobacco products have to have the general surgeon warning. Does Canada require that same type of stamping?
Absolutely. The thing that I found in my research that's kind of funny, people ask me, did the tobacco companies know that using tobacco was dangerous? Yeah, they knew. Yeah, they denied it and they delayed it. But there was so much money that was being made from the sale of tobacco in tax that the government, Great Britain, United States, Canada, particularly those three countries, profited so much by the tax money that they were almost complicit with the companies and just didn't get too excited about some of the health scares. Even today in Canada and the United States, they still collect more money from tobacco sales than they spend out trying to urge. So we've got Surgeon General warnings and other things. And I tell people, I didn't write the book to glorify it. It'll hurt you, but it's a choice. People drink too much. My doctor tells me sugar will kill you as anything. So too much red meat. So it's a choice, and people choose to use tobacco products. Cigar smoking, pipe smoking, consumption is down in Canada, United States, and Great Britain, but it's largely growing elsewhere in Malaysia, Russia, China. I mean, it's huge every place else because they don't have the controls that we have over here. So they've done some good things, but people still make their choice.
Okay, now you mentioned the cigar, because again, cigar smoker, so a lot of the listeners out here. Now, did you find out that there was a difference, which I pretty know there is a difference between a cigarette processing and a cigar with using the natural tobacco opposed to now putting chemicals into the cigarette? Did you kind of discover some of those differences? Or
yeah, I grew up around tobacco. My uncle had a tobacco farm in North Carolina. So sometimes when my mom and dad would travel, my dad went to England, Scotland, Ireland, Norway, Denmark, Germany, Holland, quite often in the summer. They'd ship me down to North Carolina. So I grew up around, the gold bright leaf or flukeberry. And I know that tobacco that is blended in cigarettes is a bit different from the pipe and cigar tobacco. You guys know more about cigars than I do, but I do know that the blending of the cigar and the wrapper is the key to cigars. They grew cigar tobacco in Florida around Tallahassee, and of course they grew cigar-style tobacco in Delaware, but definitely in Connecticut. So, funny thing that I found out about blending of tobacco, when I researched the McDonald Tobacco Company, there was an old bachelor by the name of William McDonald who somehow got tobacco from the southern states. This is the story. Got it through the, kind of like the embargo that the feds were putting on the southern states. And he somehow got tobacco into Canada, and he processed it and then sold it back to the north. But he mixed it with good old Canadian rum. So,
really,
there's some flavor for you.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. What's like an infused cigar? I guess with the cigar industry, they have infused cigars with different flavors, rum, cherry, and that's just not my thing. But they are infused cigars, so that would be an interesting concept. Now, why don't you give us a little bit of history, because you seem like you've been in a couple of places, because you're living in Canada now. But where did you grow up? Did you grow up in Canada, or did you grow up in the States?
Yeah, actually, when my dad came up here, he eventually my mother. She was from Windsor, Ontario, and they got married in 1939 and 1940. And I came along March 2nd, 1942. So I'm going to hit 79 here pretty soon.
Oh, God
but
bless.
I grew up in southwestern Ontario. I went to high school there. I went to Assumption University of Windsor. I took some courses at Wayne State in Detroit, and I became a high school. So I didn't really. Well, actually, I did work in tobacco. My dad sent me up to Quebec one year because I was taking French in high school, and he thought shipped me up to Quebec, and he had an agent up there that bought some tobacco for the Canadian Leaf. So I lived with a French Canadian family about 60 miles from Montreal, and learned how to speak a little French. I don't know whether he was trying to help me with my French or was afraid he was going to be a grandfather soon, because I was hot and heavy with a little high sweetheart. So, but I did work in it, and of course, when I was in North Carolina, I did some stick boy stuff and watched my uncle do the curing. So it was quite an experience.
So, I mean, I guess you can paint the picture for the audience, because again, we're listening to the podcast around the world, but what is it like in Canada growing up in Canada? We always hear about the snow and, a few things. What would you recommend that, if we came to Canada, what would be some of the things that you recommend? You know what, I think this would be a good place to go, something good to see.
Well, that's really nice of you to ask, Stone. My dad was a Southerner, and he used to say there's only 2 seasons in Canada: winter and June, July, and August. That was his favorite saying. Yeah, but he adjusted, and he lived here. He maintained his American citizenship, but he lived from 29 to 30, way up to the 80s when he passed away. If you were going to come to visit us in Canada, first of all, if you look at the geography, it's a huge country. It spans from Nova Scotia on the Atlantic Ocean all the way across to the Pacific Ocean. And the province that I live in, you could put Texas in the province of Ontario, I think about 3.5 times. So what do you do in Canada? I probably would come in the summer. Niagara Falls, Canadian view of Niagara Falls is absolutely amazing. Toronto is a great city. If baseball ever gets started again, we've got the Blue Jays there. Montreal is a great city. The old part of Montreal is historic, fantastic old churches, a lot of drinking spots and places to see. We've got the mountains in British Columbia, the Rocky Mountains. Vancouver is a world-class city. British Columbia is a beautiful province. You travel around a lot of areas. There's a lot of things to do. Southwestern Ontario is a great spot. Windsor, Lake Erie, Lake Ontario, up the Bruce Peninsula. And there's a lot of places to see. And we love to get some a hold of that American money too. So
now speaking
you can go to the Delhi Tobacco Museum.
Okay. Now, what part of Canada is that in?
Oh, that's about I'd say 2 hours from Detroit.
Oh, okay.
I grew up in a town called Tilsonburg, and if you or your listeners ever get a chance and you want to hear a great country song about tobacco, it's a song called Tilsonburg, ILLSONBURG, and it's sung by a guy who's passed away, Canadian country singer called Stompin' Tom Connors, and it's a great song.
Interesting, interesting. Now, how
Yes,
do you, speaking,
Delhi Tobacco Museum really pays tribute to the immigrants that came to Canada and worked in tobacco.
now touching on the museums and music, how are you guys dealing with this COVID up there? How is everything? Are you guys on the same restrictions
Well,
as we are?
so
Everything shut down, or you have a little bit more
yeah,
flexibility?
we've got a lot of lockdown, but in our country, we don't have the population that the United States has. So percentage wise, we don't have the number of people contracting the disease. We don't have as many people percentage wise dying. And I have to say, as a Canadian, probably pretty compliant with government. Now, sometimes that's a mistake, but when it comes to social distance, wearing masks, washing hands, we're following that pretty closely. And our numbers are. Ottawa is a city of 1 million people, and we don't have a lot of it. Have a lot of people in the hospital, so we're doing okay. But where we are really screwed up is we don't have access to the vaccine. Our government and our prime minister really messed up on this, and they are not getting the amount of vaccine that we need. Yeah, we're locked down. We're supposed to go to the grocery store and stay close, but we walk and we try pretty safe. But hopefully this is all over soon.
Interesting, interesting. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Now, as an outsider looking into the United States, based on what we have going on, I'm not going to get too specific because I'm not going to get into politics, but I'm just curious to know what's your viewpoint or what's the Canadians' viewpoint on what has taken place here in the United States on January 6th as far as the insurrection. Is there any chatter?
Oh yeah,
I'm just
absolutely.
curious to know. Again, we're not getting into politics. I'm just curious to know when somebody's looking from the
Yeah,
outside,
well,
looking in.
I certainly can't speak for my country. I'm not in politics. I'm just a retired high school teacher that has a house in Florida and has relatives in Florida and North Carolina. But because we are the world's greatest trading partners, and the United States are the greatest trading partners in the world, and we like to buy from the U.S. We like to sell to the U.S. We have the largest unmanned, unguarded border in the world. Obviously, there are places where you have to come through immigration and you cross the border, but we pretty well. We have some issues, but with the change in government, we're hoping that the Buy America program is good for the United States, but we're hoping that our trade negotiations with the United States, will be favorable to both countries, I should, and companies too.
Gotcha.
It was quite a shock to see what happened at the Capitol. It's a strange time, Stone. It's just a
Yes, it is.
time, and people are divided and they're unhappy about a lot of things, and there's a lot of people that are way out, and sometimes those people don't have the coping skills that maybe the rest of us have. So we need to be calm and cool and collected and make the most out of our countries. We have two great countries, and we just have to work at it.
Oh, definitely. I didn't want to put you on the spot. Just figure I'd ask that question just from someone looking from the outside looking in. A lot of times we could consume here as Americans, and I'm not gonna say we don't see clearly, but sometimes when you're in a boiling pot, you can't quite see what's really going on. So I was just curious to know. On a lighter note, now I know you're not a cigar smoker or drinker, but you may have rumors, you may have seen some things. How do you think the cigar industry in Canada is doing? Are there lounges in Canada that cigar smokers can go to? Do you have a lot of nice venues or bars that people can go visit and enjoy and partake?
There are. Really, except we're a large country in mileage and size, but we're in comparison to the United States, we're a smaller populated, and most of our population is really on the border. Toronto, Hamilton, Burlington, southwestern Ontario, and then Montreal and Vancouver. We're close to the 49th parallel. So our largest of our population is connected very closely to the United States. A lot of people in Windsor cross over and work in Detroit, and vice versa, but mostly Windsor to Detroit. So, we're really connected to the United States. A lot of intermarriages place, and as I said, I've got relatives in Detroit and North Carolina and Florida. So we're pretty connected to the United States, and we're really not a lot different than you guys. There's cigar lounges, and there are places where people enjoy their cigars, but there's a lot of laws where you have outside. Like if you're in a government building or you're working in a private industry, you probably can't smoke inside the building. I know the airports, and I've seen that in Tampa and Chicago, Atlanta, various places. You can't smoke. You can't light up a cigar or a pipe or a cigarette and walk through the airport in the United States and Canada. They have designated areas. We're pretty well doing the same.
Okay, well, it's about the same. That particular thing. That's why I said that's why they have the cigar bars and nice venues you can go and maybe have a meal and have a smoke. Was just curious to know. Again, like I said, that's not your scene, but you may have heard some things, seen some things. You could have shared with us.
And as I think I told you when we talked before we started recording, my son is down in Charlotte, North Carolina. He's a general manager of a Maggiano's restaurant, and he's a cigar. He goes to lounges. He always sends things about cigars and various things like that. He just sent me something recently. He said that the cigars and the tobacco may not have actually started in Cuba. He's saying that it was a Latin American country.
Interesting.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I got just 1 second for your listeners. This will come through. Let's just see if you can get it, okay?
Yes, sir.
And I'll tell you a little bit. I'll put that down and let it go. I want to tell you about the first cigar smoker that I found. His name was Rodrigo Jerez, and he was with Columbus, 1492 expedition. And when Columbus, one of those islands in the Caribbean, natives gave him tobacco leaf. Columbus was so impressed with him, he just threw him out. But about maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, when they got to what you and I would know as Cuba or Hispaniola, he sent 2 of his men, conquistadores, Rodrigo de Jerez, and there's a cigar named after Jerez, and Luis de Torres. And Rodrigo Jerez and Torres came upon some natives who were called drinking tobacco. And these natives had ground up tobacco and had put it in a corn, had lit it on fire, and were kind of drawing it into their mouth and their nose. That's what they called drinking tobacco. So listen to this.
The back still aches. That word. Mile away down in Ontario. Never had a nickel or dime to show. Full of people in an automobile. You want to work tobacco deals and
Anyways, that's the song. I love it. It's a great song. I use that sometimes in my talk. But yeah, and anyways, this Rodrigo Jerez takes tobacco back to Spain, and he's smoking it, and there's smoke coming out of his mouth and out of his nose. He's at home, and his wife gets panicky, and she gets a hold of the local priest. And his father, his name is Father Jose. Says, Father Jose, you better get down to the house. Rodrigo is on fire. There's smoke coming out of his nose. It must be the devil. And so the Father Jose comes over. It's really early in the morning. He knocks on the door, and Rodrigo's wife says, come on, I'll show you. And the priest, Father Jose, says, well, it's early in the morning. I don't see him out there. The wife of Rodrigo Jerez turns to him and says, can you see by the dawn's early light, there sits Rodrigo smoking. What a hell of a sight. A little bit of... He actually landed up in jail during the Spanish Inquisition for 7 years because the only person that could blow smoke out of their nose or out of their mouth was the devil.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
That's my Rodriguez story.
Good thing they don't have that now because I think everybody be in jail. Most population have some type of smoke coming out their mouth, whether it be cigar, cigarette, weed.
Yeah. True.
Oh, man. Interesting. Now, where can they find this book from? Where can it,
Well, the easiest thing for people in the U.S. and elsewhere, I've actually had sales in England, Japan, Malta, Peru, is at Amazon. You just go to Amazon.com or if you're Amazon.uk or Amazon.Japan, JPN, and just search When Paco Was King, and it's available at Amazon. They ship it out pretty quickly.
All right.
I found that's the best way to do it. Like when I've done talks in North Carolina, Virginia, Florida, of course Canada. When I go there in person, I do what they call an author drop. I ship books right to the facility and do the talk. It's amazing. People want you to sign it and and kind of write it to so and so, and it's really different for me. I don't really consider myself anything particularly special. If it makes people happy to endorse it by the author, I'm happy to do that. But Amazon's probably the best way to do it.
Okay. Now, do you have any other books out, or this is the only book that you have so far?
I don't, but I'll tell you what I'm working on, and you and your followers, I'm really interested in this when I get it done. I played semi-pro baseball in southwestern Ontario, and the league that I played in is called the Inter-County Baseball League, and that league has been going for over 100 years, and the park that I played in is considered to be the ballpark that has the longest continuous play of all ballparks in North America. And in the 50s, actually 1949 to 1956, there was about 7 years where Negro players from the Negro American and Negro National League came to Canada and played in that league. They also played in Manitoba and Dakota, but there were something like 30 players from the Negro League that played in the league that I played in when I started in 1963, and I actually played against two of those players. And I've been writing my memories from my baseball background. And you see, I played on an integrated baseball team when I was a kid.
Oh, wow.
We had black kids, we had Chinese kids, we had Japanese kids. We were kind of like the United Nations of a baseball team. And I grew up playing. I played with Fergie Jenkins, the great Chicago Cubs pitcher. He's from Chatham, Ontario. I know Fergie really well, and I'm going to ask him to endorse this book, because it's a story of integrated baseball success. And I'm having a ball finding out about some of these Negro League players. They were fascinating people, great ball players, but also great human beings. They're terrific. You see, Robinson signed with the Montreal Royals, the Dodgers organization, and he broke the color barrier with the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1947. Well, the Negro Leagues then began to decline, because the younger guys like Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, Ernie Banks, Hank Thompson, well, he was a little older, Bob Thurman, those guys were now eventually, Larry Doby, getting into the major leagues. So the Negro Leagues declined. But those guys were still good, and they still wanted to play, and the best place for them to go was Canada, because we didn't have the Jim Crow laws. We were certainly much more receptive and respected them as people than they were experiencing in the United States, particularly in the South.
Oh, that
So
does.
I'm working on that. I think it's going to be good.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. Now, was your guys, your team any good? Did you win games?
Absolutely. As a kid, my man, we won. I played on 3 provincial championships. That would be like a state championship. And we played. Chatham, my town, was a town of about 20,000. We played against anybody in the provincial championships. And when I got to another town, Tillsonburg, we won a provincial men's championship. And I played in that inter-county league that I told you about for 9 years, won 5 pennants, and won 1 championship, which is difficult to do because there are a lot of good teams up here.
All right, so
But
you had a nice
I had
little
a
run.
great time. I enjoyed every minute of it.
Definitely sound like you had a good run. Now, I know you're on social media, so why don't you give some of those plugs out too? How can folks find you on social media?
Okay, I have a website myself that people can just look at and see, my speaking schedule, what other people are saying about the book, some endorsements, some summaries, and it's called www.whentobaccowaskingbook.com. whentobaccowaskingbook.com. And I'm on Instagram too. I think it's called at the Tobacco Book. But most people, and sometimes when I'm setting up author talk, I just tell them, just go search When Tobacco Was King. Do a Google search, When Tobacco Was King, Paul Allen. I have been just thrilled to death with the coverage that I have got. I've got front page articles in Henderson, North Carolina. I got a front page article in the Delhi area where that tobacco museum is, and a national trade magazine called Tobacco Business did a phenomenal color article on. It's called The Royal Leaf, and I'm on Facebook too under Paul Allen, and
Okay.
I post things there, but. Yeah, with media now, you can find just about anything, but I've been really happy with the response. Everybody seems to really enjoy it. Stone, I even got an email from a guy in the United States Navy.
Oh,
He
really?
was on a ship, and he had Wi-Fi access, and he said, I just saw something about your book. Where can I get it? And I said, well, I don't know where you are, and you probably can't tell me, but order it on Amazon. So I guess when he got to port, he picked it up, and he read it, and he emailed me the next day after he got the book, and he says, man, you killed it. He said, I loved it. Stayed up all night. He said, I really enjoyed it. I'm going to tell my guys.
that's
So I was
great.
thrilled that,
That's great, man. That's
you
great.
contributed to the service people. And, hey, shout out to those guys in Canada, United States, guys that are out there doing a job and protecting us. We can't thank you enough.
Absolutely. We want to thank them for their services. Definitely. Absolutely. Was there anything that we didn't talk about that you want the listeners to know before we shut it down?
I don't think so. I wish I could be in person at a couple places. It's nice to look at people, shake their hands, and I'll tell you, Stone, I get good feedback from people, from the podcast and from my author presentations. Of course, these are now we're doing some on Zoom, but I get feedback from people who are connected to the industry in some capacity. They tell you, I worked my way through school. I had a lady come to me in Danville, Virginia, and she said, tobacco changed my life. And I said, how's that? She said, taught my kids how to work hard, and I've got two doctors, an engineer, and a lawyer from my family that I never paid a penny for their education, and they learned how to work. And I hear stories like that all the time.
that's
Immigrant
beautiful.
people. I met a guy in Florida who owns a bowling alley, and he was from Portugal, and he grew tobacco in a little town outside where I lived. And I used to stop at the bakery to buy donuts at that place when I was playing baseball. And this guy was 85 years old, and his farm adjoined that bakery, and I met him in Florida.
Wow.
So, big connections, a lot of great people, and a lot of great stories. I think people really enjoy the book. I haven't had anybody really say I didn't like it because, Stone, I write the book the way I'm talking to you.
Right.
I'm not a PhD. I'm not a special. I just
conversation.
tell a social history, and it's a travel story. People love stories. And my dad traveled on one of the first commercial flights in 1946 after the war on a converted Lancaster bomber across the Atlantic. Took him 13 hours and 25 minutes.
Wow, that's interesting.
Went to Rhodesia. He was in, that's present-day Zimbabwe. He was in the tobacco business, buying tobacco in Rhodesia. There are lots of great stories. And he was in Japan. So people really seem to enjoy it. I'm really proud of it. I really appreciate you having me, too.
Definitely. I thank you for being a guest, man. Definitely. Like I said, it sounds like an amazing book. So, folks, go check him out. Like I said, the book is called When Tobacco Was King. My brother.
Yeah, When Tobacco Was King, and the subheading is, When Tobacco Was King, they can find it. It's called A History of Tobacco in Canada and the United States, A Southerner's Global Journey. And if you haven't seen the cover of the book, we hit upon a little marketing thing myself. We put a sticker that now is right on the cover of the books when you order it, and it's in red with yellow print. It says, "This book is not hazardous to your health."
I like it. I like it.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. One of my friends said, "Yeah, only if you smoke it."
Well, yeah, maybe let's try to eat it. Might not be too good for you. Well, Paul, look, I appreciate you being a guest on Smoke World. Brother, like
Thank
I
you
said,
so much.
when you do the next book, you let me know. We'll bring you on as a guest. So keep me in mind. Let the audience know out there. Like I said, when you're ready to rock and roll, we'll bring you back on so you can discuss that. Because, again, that's a great story, the Negro League. A very amazing story. Again, we appreciate you. You be safe up there, brother.
I really appreciate having you guys. Be safe, and all you listeners, take care of yourself. Enjoy. When you're not doing anything else, open that book for me and read it. You'll have a ball.
But there you have it, folks. Another episode of Smoke World in the books. Again, you can follow me on Instagram at Smoke World Podcast. Email stone@smokeworldpodcast.com. Website smokeworldpodcast.com. And again, folks, thanks for listening. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. We will check you out on the other side. Peace.